Good morning, baseball fans. It is Sunday, the 12th of November, and this hot stove is very, very, very hot. Like it's off season, but it's like not the off. I mean, it's off season, but the stove is cooking. Okay. I am Suzy. This is Bourbon and Baseball. And guys, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to introduce my new co-host. You may have seen her before. You may have heard her before. Kelsey Bird. Come on down. So excited, guys. I'm so excited. You guys have heard Kelsey before. She's been a guest on the show. And now you guys get to hear her literally every week. Every week you get to hear
Oh
her
my
with
gosh.
me.
Lucky you.
I
Here
know.
I am.
I'm thrilled. If you can't get enough of Kelsey, you can go listen to Kelsey on her own podcast, Peace, Love, and Baseball. Okay. She has graciously agreed to be my new co-host, and I'm so excited.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I'm so excited to talk to someone other than myself regularly about all the happenings in baseball. So
Yay!
thank you for bringing me on board. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm so excited. So let's jump right in. Let's jump right in with the warning first, because I always forget the warning. Guys, it's a rated R podcast. It is a rated R podcast for all of the adult content, and not that kind of adult content, like the adult content with like language. Okay, because I'm gonna drop some F bombs.
In a lot of
Um, lots of F bombs, lots of cuss words, probably some inappropriate adult humor, because that's who I am as a person. And so if you have any, impressionable tiny minds ears listening, you may want to not. Just saying. Just
plug
saying.
them up,
Like, yeah.
quiet their minds.
Okay. Like, don't come for me. Don't come for me.
Yeah,
If
you've been
they
warned.
they learned things. All right. Or if you yourself do not enjoy cuss words or inappropriate adult humor, that's totally okay. This podcast may not be your jam, though. Just again, there's your warning. So away we go. And it is probably a pretty good thing that I gave you guys that warning, because we're gonna start off with the literal shitty winter meetings. Kels.
Yeah. Yeah, it was not pretty. It sounds like on maybe the second of the third day
Yeah.
of the GM meetings that were in Scottsdale, Arizona this past week, that half at least
Yeah.
of the executives there came down with, I think what they initially thought was food poisoning, but then it came out that like some of the people that were sick didn't eat the same things.
Yeah.
So they ended up determining that it was some sort of like norovirus sort of
Yep.
thing,
Yep.
like the kind of illness, I guess, that's typically associated with being on a cruise ship, right?
Um, I don't know if it's a cruise ship, but essentially, someone went to the bathroom and wiped and didn't wash their hands,
Oh,
and it's so
yeah, I just don't
essentially,
even wanna think about it that way, but wow, yeah,
yeah,
that's how it happens, isn't it?
it's literal shit. Like someone wiped and didn't wash their hands and then touched food, and
Mm.
so on and so forth.
Did we
And
learn
so,
nothing from the
yeah,
pandemic? Is ugh.
nope. We've forgotten to wash our hands, apparently. Like,
I saw someone referred to them on Twitter as the GI meetings. I thought that was pretty clever.
yes. Yeah, so the rest of the meetings, I guess, were held via Zoom. Like,
Yeah,
everybody,
they wrapped them up early. A lot of the media got out of there because there
yeah,
was, yeah, nothing to cover anymore. What I thought was interesting, though, is it seems like the GM meetings, because these are actually like pre-winter meetings, which are gonna happen the first week of December, and from what I have heard, baseball execs talk about and just kind of the rumblings around is that maybe these meetings will ultimately be phased out
mm,
because it used to happen, because this was really one of the only like three times throughout the year that all of the baseball executives were together, and it was like straight conversation, get straight down to the point, because this is our time to interact. But with,
gotcha.
technology, and
Right,
they're constantly texting back and forth these days, it's like, how imperative really are these meetings now? So
right,
maybe this was like the sign from the baseball gods that we don't really need GM meetings anymore. I
right.
don't know, but I
I
thought
don't
that
know.
was interesting.
Well, I don't know if it's commonplace for the players to go to these meetings, but I wanna say I know at least, like, Matt Chapman, I guess, was there me talking to some of the GMs, was third baseman for the Blue Jays, is now a free agent. Before that was with the A's. So again, I don't know. And then like last season you heard that, Arson Judge, I mean Aaron Judge went to some of the
True.
meetings to exactly, to go, like, meet with execs and stuff. So, I I don't know. I don't know if it's a one-stop shop, if
Yeah,
you
I mean,
will,
it is a place where you know all the people who are going to be there, so it
Yeah.
does give you that kind of, like, access to them, but I don't think it's super common that the players go, but I would assume, all their agents are there,
Right.
but it probably depends on I'm sure certain players are more directly involved with their negotiations than others,
Right.
and, uh Matt Chapman lives, I think, in Scottsdale, so, I
Okay.
mean, if I was him and,
Right.
everybody was in town,
Right
I'd probably
there.
pop over and say hey too, but yeah, it is
Um
interesting.
So this is not on our notes, Kelsey, and I'm sorry. I meant to put it on our notes, but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, like you mentioned, all of the agents at these meetings, right?
Mhm,
Scott
mhm.
Boras, literally being one of the most famous of the agents, is
Yes.
known for his really bad, like, dad jokes
Yeah,
slash puns.
yeah.
My question is this an actual marketing strategy by Scott Boras to create these really, really shitty puns slash dad jokes so that we fucking talk about him more?
Yeah, I thought initially that you were actually just gonna ask me is, like, was it his shitty jokes that actually made everyone sick?
Yeah,
Because that I could totally see as well, but yes, 100%. I do think that a huge part of his persona is about attention and exposure for him. I mean, it's why we know
right,
his name. Do you know any other
exactly.
agents' names? Because I don't
No.
off the top of my head.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
I can kinda tell you, like, maybe some of the, like, the management, like, groups themselves, maybe, like, "Oh, that company represents that
yes,
player," but
yes.
as of, like, besides Scott Boras and maybe, like,
Yeah, and
Trevor Bauer's agent, like, that's really the only
yeah,
other
and I
one that I
certainly
know.
couldn't see them and, like, know who they are, you
Yeah,
know? But, yeah, no, he's all about number 1, obviously, and, I mean, every year, supposedly, he asks, Major League Baseball if he can use, like, the main stage or whatever setup they have
yeah,
to address everyone and have his, like, media time, and every year they say no, so he sets up in the lobby and tells the media when he's gonna be there and makes his own show, and
yeah.
this year, he actually brought his own little step and repeat behind him and, like, set up shop
Background, yeah,
and made it the Scott Boras show,
yeah.
so yeah,
Um,
what other reason is there for it? Like, it is, like, his personality. It is actually his dream to be, like, the top podcaster, clearly. He's listening to us right now being like, "I wish I were you, Suzy and
why
Kelsey."
why doesn't he have his own podcast? Like, I need to know these things, but, like, so if you guys haven't heard of his horrible, horrible jokes, this is one of Cody Bellinger of, now the Chicago Cubs. Chicago got the comforts of a full belly. They're going to have to loosen their belts to keep Bellinger. And they spelled belly, Belli, obviously. And I'm
Ugh.
all, stop it. Just stop it. And then Pete Alonso, first baseman of the Mets. They're trying to figure out if the Mets will extend him. When it comes to the polar bear, we're not in contract hibernation. Just
That was one of my favorites because polar bears don't hibernate. They're, like, one of the only bears probably that don't hibernate. I'm not a bear expert, but I immediately was like, "Wait a second." Not that I think Scott cares about that for the purpose of the joke, but wow.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, like, do you think he's coming up with them? He has a team
I I think there's gotta be a team. There's no way that Scott Boras is coming up with his
that he is
own
that
material.
kind of clever because, like, they are clever, but it's funny because the first time you hear the first one and you're like, "Oh, did he, like, mean to do that?" And
Right,
then
right.
and then he does it for every single player, and by I think they kinda get progressively worse because you're, like, less impressed with it because 'cause you're like, "Oh god, what is he gonna
Yeah,
say for Jordan
yeah,
Montgomery?" You know?
exactly. But, here we are talking about him, talking
Mission
about
accomplished.
whatever
Happy
free
day.
agent, so I'm all, that is the most brilliant marketing strategy. Like, just
Yeah.
let's do those shittiest pun slash bad dad jokes,
Yep.
and let's get everybody into it. I'm like, hey, hats off, Scott Boras. I mean, you didn't
Ugh.
you didn't become
Ooh,
a overnight millionaire, billionaire. I really do think his net worth is in the billions. Yeah, I'm pretty
It's
sure.
probably getting close. I
Yeah.
don't even wanna know. But
Ay,
yeah,
ay.
he is an entertainer as well as an agent. So, yeah, kudos for
So
that, I guess.
you're like, grudgingly, I will congratulate you. But yeah, so
I have a deep-seated disdain for people like Scott Boras, so
my question is though, like, because everyone, is like, "Oh, he's a Scott Boras client." Why do we? Is it because of the dad jokes? Is it because he's so rich? Is it like,
well,
me personally, it's because 'cause I'm, like, a little bit jealous. I'm like, "Ah, I can only imagine." But,
no,
like
he's the skis, like, he is notorious for only negotiating directly with owners because the team presidents and GMs are too smart to buy into that's why he gets outrageous deals for his clients, is because he acts like he's, like, too good, like, he's above talking to these baseball execs, and he'll only talk to the owners because, I mean, he knows they're the ones that actually hold the
right,
purse strings, right?
right,
So there's some that's the validity to it. And then the owners, of course, are all ego and like, oh well, yeah, the top agent, the best agent who represents like some of the best players in baseball wants to talk directly to me. It's all part of his shtick, and he's year over year. I mean, I think enough of them are catching on now,
right,
but 10, 20 years ago, I mean, especially 20 years ago, he's been doing this for so long now. It it took a while. It took way too long, in my opinion, for these owners to catch on and for the executives, I guess, to convince the owners, like, "You being played over and over and over
right,
again."
right,
And I do think that that's why, I have no ill will towards Carlos Correa in particular,
right.
but I was all too happy to see him not get the insane amount of money that he was initially gonna get because I didn't wanna see Scott Boras pull one over on someone again. So that's I guess that's like my basic beef with him
Gotcha, gotcha.
is, yeah, he's a con man.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I
Yeah.
like it. I like it. All right. Well, so we'll see what actually happens. With all of those free agents. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think he's got pretty much all of the
He has a lot of
named
starting
names.
pitchers,
Yep.
yeah, a lot of the big
Um,
names.
like really the only, really the biggest name, Shohei Ohtani, is really the only one that he doesn't have.
Mhm.
So congratulations, Shohei Ohtani, for not signing with Star Wars. Like,
Yeah,
love that.
Shohei does not give me Scott Boras vibes. Neither does Jordan Montgomery though, either, honestly. It's weird. There are some players where I'm like Carlos Correa, for example. I'm
Right.
like, totally, you are a Scott Boras client. Juan Soto, 100%. Pete Alonso, match made in
Yes.
heaven.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Some of those I'm all, because like, now I know, like, other people will be like, "Uh-huh." Like, Jose Altuve is a Scott Boras client, and I'm all, "I'm sorry, what?"
Ooh,
Like,
yeah. I wouldn't have necessarily
yeah,
seen that one.
that's
But he also is notorious for poaching from other agencies, which is what he
yeah,
just did with Pete Alonso. So that's the other reason why, like, I get it. There are people who really admire those sorts of things and the
right,
way, and I admire good business. And that's
right,
where like I fall in between on a lot of these things where I'm like, you can't blame anybody for wanting to make the most money and blah blah blah. But I personally, for me,
right,
maintaining that certain level of integrity is still really important,
yeah,
and he just there's no line
yeah,
with him.
yeah. So I'm like, "Really, Jose Altuve?" Like, I didn't see that one. I didn't see that one
Yeah.
coming at all, he's best friends with Lance McCullers Jr. Lance McCullers Jr. is a Scott Boras client. I'm like,
Uh,
"Yeah, no, I see that one.
reins
I see
them
that one.
in.
See that one."
Right.
So, but yeah, it's really interesting to see, like, which of the free agents are Scott Boras clients and which aren't, and so you're like, "Oh, all right. How long until Shohei Ohtani is a Scott Boras client?"
Yeah.
Like, you gotta imagine that Scott Boras
Oh,
was, like, trying real
he's
hard to, like,
trying
got him
for
over, you know?
sure. Mhm.
So, um, but so let's move on to, Ron Washington and the Angels new
Yeah.
manager. Like, hooray.
Yeah,
Hooray,
that's
Ron Washington.
exciting. That's just like I feel like there's all good vibes around that news.
Right.
It is a little weird. The only, like, weirdness, I guess, around it is because it's the Angels, right? So we're like,
Yeah.
did Artie Moreno actually do something good for the Angels?
You
Did he
know,
make a good decision that might actually help his team win? Like, that's what's confusing about it. Other
yeah.
than that, it's like, hell yeah, Ron Washington is finally getting his time in the sun. No one has anything but wonderful things to say about him. And he's that, old school type of guy who is really able to maintain relationships and
Mhm.
articulate things from the analytics side to the players. He's got every angle that you could want in a good leader.
Yep.
So the only confusing part is like, oh, the Angels.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We're like, all right. Well, now there are a couple of, managerial openings available, Angels, Padres, Astros, now the Brewers, but we'll touch on that in just a minute. Um but not gonna lie, I was a little I was a little confused now, that I became a baseball fan in 2018. So going back and watching old MLB games and serieses and whatnot, and finding out some of these people that I kind of pigeonhole in my brain as like, okay, like Ron Washington is, like the Braves like bench
Yeah.
coach and like, works the infield and all that. So when I when I tell you that I was shocked to find that he was the Rangers manager at one point, I'm all, hold up. What now? How we how we go from the Rangers
Yeah.
manager to the Braves, like what? And people are like, drugs, Suzy, drugs. I'm all, what? What are you talking
What is the
about?
story?
What do you mean drugs? And they're like, Google it. I'm all, don't tell me to Google. I was like, y'all can break my heart, aren't you? Absolutely. And I was like, oh, what is
Yeah, it's one of
this?
those, like, Santa isn't real moments. Another reason your kids shouldn't listen, I'm sorry. Oh god. But that's what it is. That yeah,
Yeah.
that it's
Th-
kinda one of those
They're
kind
gonna
of things.
cancel us now, Kelsey, and it's all your fault. God,
Not because of shit, fuck damn it, but
no, 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 definitely not that.
real.
Yes, yeah, that's why they're gonna cancel us. But yeah, no, I was like, wait, hold on. Ron Washington was like, what? And they're like, oh yeah, no, just like mountains of cocaine. I'm all, stop talking to me about this. So I was very sad
Yeah.
when I learned that fact. And I was like, oh, all right. So like, yay, Ron Washington. Like, I'm glad that like things got turned around, and you now get another chance to manage. I'm excited to see what they do with that infield, with like that Angels infield, and I don't know if maybe he can turn Anthony Rendon
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, that's what I am most excited about too, is seeing how he is able to utilize their roster
Yeah.
differently to hopefully make the most out of it. And a lot of it might start with those kinds of relationships and personalities. And you almost have to wonder, I know there's a lot of talk about Mike Trout and is he going to get traded? Does he want to get traded? All that good stuff. But is this something that Mike Trout was like a part of? Was he
Right.
brought into this conversation of what kind of leadership do we bring in here to, create a different environment? And
Right.
just it's really one of the things that I think is cool, and we're going to talk more about it with the other manager news this week as well. But I love this narrative that like it matters who your
Yeah.
manager is, and this old school leadership and like the people's people
Yeah.
are really the kind of guys that are finding success, and that's
Yeah.
not gonna change,
Yeah.
analytics doesn't change that is still important. It's a
Yep.
tool, not a different style
Yeah.
completely.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, I'll be really interested to see how the Angels progress, and like, because last season this time I was looking at the Angels and being like, oh, the Angels, like, that they may be making some moves, like that may be a thing in the AL West, like, okay, like, and then they came out hot, and then they fizzled, and so you're like,
Fizzled even
oh,
quicker,
yeah,
yes.
that's all right. So it'll be interesting to kind of keep an eye on that and see what happens there. Um, and then we heard all about the drama with Craig Counsell going to the Cubs. And didn't if you missed out on that episode that I recorded with the Brewers babes, you missed out, because
They're the best.
Lisa and Aaron are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, they are good peoples, and I was like, I like them. I
Yeah,
like them a
they're
lot.
awesome baseball fans, and they were the first people I thought, like, as much as I mean, as an NL Central fan myself, And I'm a huge Craig Counsell fan. Like, I had feelings, but I immediately was like, check on the Brewers, babes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you guys missed that episode, go watch that episode, go listen to that episode. Very good time. But yeah, Craig Counsell was the manager of the Brewers, long time resident of Milwaukee, like played for the like whole thing, went
From
and
Milwaukee, yeah.
got all of the monies from the Cubs. All of the monies while they still retained David Ross, Cubs World Series winning player for them. As their manager, they still had a manager and was like, "Hey, Craig Counsell, let's pay you some more money to come be our manager." So that's, that's a little shady. David Ross,
It was even more interesting to be like, oh, because it's different when someone is not doing the job well, and it's very obvious that you're, like, looking to replace them, and that's
right,
when managers get dismissed and fired and all that
right,
stuff. But to be like, "Oh, no, we just saw something better, so we'll take that instead," which means we
yeah,
no longer have room for you. Like, that's a
yeah.
different situation.
Well, and I wasn't aware that it's basically history repeating itself over over with the Cubs because
Yeah.
apparently they replaced Joe Madden when
Yes.
Rick Renteria, I think. So they
Yes.
replaced Rick
Mhm.
Renteria with Joe Madden, and then they replaced Joe Madden with David Ross,
Yep.
and then now they've replaced David Ross with Craig Counsell. Like, I don't know, maybe I don't know, Cubs, maybe someone would think twice about taking the managerial job for the Cubs because fuck a contract, like, don't matter.
Right, yeah. Well, and it's just interesting the way I mean, firing managers is common, it's part of the job, like, you
Right.
haven't really been a major league manager until you've gotten fired from your job, like, it's just part of it, which I get, but I don't necessarily love,
Yeah.
but just because of the optics of it and, like, it makes it seem so unrelatable in the sense of, like, this is still someone's job, like,
Yeah.
what if you got fired from your job every 2 years? How would you handle that? Like, these are
Yeah.
people, but it's the nature of the position, it's the nature of the business
Yeah.
of baseball, but yeah, the whole like, it's one thing to be fired and then know that, like, obviously, they're gonna replace you with someone, but to quite literally just be like, "Oh, we saw the next big shiny thing, and we'll take that instead." Like, just
Yeah.
constantly looking for an upgrade, I guess.
Yeah. I was like, "Oh, all right." So then if but my question was, if Craig Counsell was like, "JK, you can't there is no amount of money that you can pay me to leave the Brewers," would they have just stayed with David Ross? Like,
Yes. I don't think that they were, like, looking to get rid of him. It really seems as if he was available, and if it's kinda like Juan Soto, like the Juan Soto trade palooza last year where it was like, "Oh, I never would have necessarily like, you don't even really fit on my team, you don't necessarily make sense, but if somebody like Juan Soto is available, if
right,
somebody like
you just
Bryce Harper is
yeah,
available, somebody like Mike Trout is available, like, you figure it out."
right,
You're at least gonna put your hat in the ring, and what I really like about it is the same thing that we were talking about with Ron Washington is I like that it says this position matters, leadership matters, and we're as a big market team like who already had a manager who was,
right,
for all practical purposes working out just fine for us, and this is the difference maker
right,
is this guy and his level of leadership, and it's worth us bringing him in. So I really liked that about it, and the fact that yeah, the contract that he signed, like I understand like it's about the money for everyone to a certain
right,
extent, but I do think that there is some validity to it being an important step for all managers to be valued at a certain level, and I like that about it even as a Cardinals fan. I
Yeah, I
also
was
I guess I'll say the other thing I like about it, this is how I'm really trying I've been working on turning this around for myself, Suzy,
okay,
because I love Craig Counsell, and I
uh-huh,
wanna see him do well, and I wanna see him prove that leadership matters. I just really don't wanna see him do it with the Cubs, obviously, but I do think what it does is it forces the Cubs just said the NL Central Division is leveling up,
right,
and either you're coming or you're not.
right,
So, Reds, Brewers, Cardinals, Pirates maybe eventually someday. Get on board. Let's go, because I'm sick of this narrative which is not even a narrative. It's just true to a certain extent that the NL Central is one of the weaker divisions in baseball,
Right.
and that the
Well,
Cardinals are able to get into the playoffs by default. We as fans, like, that's in the long run, that's just not the kind of baseball that we want to see. We want it to be more competitive for the right reasons. And
right.
that is, to me, the bomb that the Cubs just dropped. So I am hopeful that John Mozeliak is hearing that and embracing the challenge and ready to take it head on. So that is how I've reframed it for myself.
Okay. Okay. I like it. I like it.
But you were surprised to learn that, like, the Cubs and the Brewers have a rivalry, right?
My mind was blown when I
It's never so
was like,
close together. It's kind of like the Astros and the Rangers, I guess.
well, but see,
I mean, they're in
no,
the same division,
kind of
so
like I mean, just this season, it's become a rivalry
gotcha.
because for you know for so long, I say for so long, up until like 2016, the Rangers basically just beat up on the Astros, and then the Astros were like, "JK, we got this now."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now it's like now it's
even
reversed.
out.
But I was like, "I'm sorry, why?" But it's a whole different again because Texas, everything is so close yet so far. I was like, "Wait, Chicago is Chicago Cubs. It's a whole other state." And then again, like in my brain, all of the states up there just kind of float and they're not next to each other. Like I don't okay. And some all I don't understand. And then and then they're like, yeah, it's like an hour away. Well, oh, just kidding. But see
Yeah,
that but in my head, again, like the Cubs and the White Sox should be a rivalry. And everyone's like, it's not
and
really
they
like that,
are,
like not
but
really. But it
yeah,
apparently not to the level of the
no.
Cubs and the Brewers. Okay. So again, doesn't make sense to me. But also, again, we all know, Suzy is not that Asian. Okay. Uh geography also not a strong point for me. And oh, it's gonna be a good story. So remember when I told you that I had a story about the Kansas City Royals?
Yes.
Okay. When I tell you that my mind was blown that the Kansas City Royals are not actually in Kansas,
Ah,
I was
yes.
like, "Hold on. What do you mean?" And it was so funny because I was talking to my husband about, like, the Kansas City Royals, and I was like, "Well, yeah, no, like, Kansas has a has a team, like, what are you talking about?" And he goes, "What? What do you mean?" And I go, "What do you mean, what do I mean? Can't do we not remember the Kansas
Literally
City
her
Royals?"
name.
And he goes, "Oh, baby. No, no. You remember you remember how Kansas City, there's, like, 2 Kansas Cities?" I was like, "You shut the fuck up right now. You mean to tell me this entire time I was thinking it was Kansas City, Kansas has a fucking team, the Kansas City Royals, that it's Kansas City, Missouri?" He's like, "Absolutely, Susie." And I was like, "Oh, fuck." And I go,
Indeed.
"Hold on. Hold on. So you mean to tell me that the Cardinals?" And he's like, "Oh, sweet baby." And he just, like, patted my head, and I was like, "Don't fucking touch me." I was like, "What is happening?" I was like, "So Missouri just has all the teams. Got it. Okay."
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
was like, "So, but, like, St. Louis, like, the Cardinals are not fucking rivals with the Royals, are they? Or do I just not know?"
No, I mean, not the same way that they are with the Cubs, because quite honestly, St. Louis is almost in Illinois. Like, St. Louis is on the border of Illinois
Okay.
and Missouri. So and yes, so I guess the easiest way to explain it that would make a lot of sense in terms of the Brewers-Cubs rivalry is I live about 9 miles from Wrigley Field right now. I live about 80 miles from American Family Field. It would take
Okay.
me the same amount of time to drive to Wrigley Field and park and get in the stadium as it would to drive to American Family Field and park and get in the stadium. So, I've gone to American Family Field a lot more recently because of that.
Okay.
And
Okay.
also, the tickets are half the price and all the food is half the price, and, like, it's just a much more enjoyable experience because their ballpark is newer and more spread out, and, no shade towards Wrigley, but it actually costs more to park at American Family Field on the games where they play the Cubs, because that's how much of an influx there is
Ah, okay, okay,
in
yeah.
terms of fans, Cubs fans coming out to the stadium. And that would have been if I really wanted them to play the wild card series against each other, which absolutely could have
Yeah,
happened. I mean, they were like one game off from being in
yeah.
that position instead of the Diamondbacks, because yeah, it would have been crazy up there. And honestly, it probably would have been more like a Cubs home game at American Family Field because
Okay,
of
because
just
that's
how many more Cubs fans there
fans.
are
Yeah.
in general and how easy it is for us to get up there. And by us, I mean, I'm not a Cubs fan, but, us in Chicago to get up there.
The Chicagoans. Is that
Ooh,
Chicagoites? Chicago. I don't. What are Chicago people?
Chicagoans.
Chicagoans. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm just learning all kinds of things. All kinds of things, guys.
All the good things there are to learn about the Midwest.
All right. So, yeah. So, going on payroll,
Yeah, speaking of the Midwest.
speaking of the Midwest and and payroll and Chicago, the White Sox, the Chicago White Sox, they have all kinds of things going on with them besides sucking because um their their GM basically came out and was like, everyone sucks, just come on and get
Who
them.
wants
That's not
some?
what he actually said, but essentially he said something to the effect of, I don't like anyone on this team.
Yeah.
Like, how my, I'm wondering, like, Dylan Cease is just scrolling Twitter one day with his
Right.
cat and is like, what the fuck, bro?
What?
Like, I need I
Yeah.
need I need I need player reactions here. I need player reactions. But I mean, when, the largest contract that the team has ever fucking signed is to Andrew Benintendi, like, what are you doing? So, sure. I feel it. I also don't like many of the White Sox.
Right, right. I can't say I'm super excited about anyone on the team either.
Yeah.
They traded away Jake Berger, and he was, like, my reasons to watch the White Sox. It's so funny because like, the week before they traded him,
Uh-huh.
I went to the White Sox were playing the Cardinals, I went to the game, and I said to my husband, like, "I don't know what it is about him," like, talking about Jake Berger, but I'm like, "I really like him, and he just does
Uh-huh.
not fit in with this team." Like, he has
Yeah.
different vibes are on a different level,
Yeah.
and I was so excited to see him get to go and play for the Marlins, but yeah, I think the only response to that is for the players to make a TikTok of like, a reaction TikTok of all of them, like, scrolling through Twitter and seeing Chris Getz.
Yeah. I mean, like, well, they were just out here just catching strays. Now, and it had come out earlier in the season during like the trade deadline and whatnot that a lot of the players were unhappy with with the vibes
Yeah,
essentially, like the player atmosphere and excuse me, things like that. And Jose Abreu leaving and going to, coming to the Astros and
yeah,
being their first base. And I I didn't think that that move was going to be apparently as detrimental to the White Sox as it has, I guess, because from everything that I had heard and read, Jose Abreu basically was like the glue in that clubhouse and like the dad and just kind of kept everybody in line.
I could see
And
that, yeah.
because he's no longer there, not and nobody really stepped up to kind of fill that role. And I
Mhm.
don't even know like who I guess would fill that role. I mean, maybe Tim Anderson, but Tim Anderson has had his issues on and off the
Yeah,
field. Um, and I'm like, okay. And Luis Robert was there and Juan Moncada and like which White Sox player, I think they asked which they asked one of the White Sox players about it, and he's like, "I'm not here for that. I'm here to play baseball." It's
yeah,
basically like the leadership, and he's like, "Yeah, that's not me." I'm all, "Oh, okay then." Was it wasn't Luis Robert. I wanna say it was one of the other ones. Maybe it was Juan Moncada.
yeah, I am not sure, I didn't hear about that, but I'm not surprised, and here's, I guess, what I think about that, and I will tie this back to a conversation that happened a lot around Manny Machado and the Padres as well
Mhm.
during this season, is I think you need that guy or those guys, like, that is very important, and I have no doubt that that is a part of what has gone wrong for the White Sox since Jose Abreu left, but you can't force any one guy to be that guy. You have to find that guy. Like, you have
Right.
to find that guy and let him be that guy, but expecting somebody like Tim Anderson, who I hope for him, they did not pick up his option. I hope for him that he gets a pillow deal somewhere and he can grow up, and that we can see him be that kind of a guy, because I do see that like in him. He just
Mhm.
doesn't, I don't know if it's the maturity or like who knows what he has going on off the field, but
Oh, did you not hear about the baby mama drama?
oh,
Oh, yeah.
no. Okay, so he
Yeah.
does have some personal stuff that reads.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could sense that.
Yeah,
But
that was the whole thing. Yeah,
okay.
there's some baby mama drama going on there, and I was shocked to hear that because I hadn't heard that with any like from anybody until I did some research, and I was like, "Whoa, okay, Tim Anderson, like what you doing over there?" Yeah, so Tim Anderson
He's
has
got his
had a
own stuff.
child, not with his actual wife, with
Oof. Yeah.
a
Mm,
whole other person, lady that's, like, on the social medias posting the baby and pictures of her and Tim Anderson.
okay.
So, like, that whole drama and then, like, the whole, like, fight with Jose Ramirez of the
Mhm.
Guardians, like, that was real like, "Oh, Tim Anderson." That's so he had some off the field issues that I think affected him performance-wise on the field, not anywhere else.
That
On the
makes a lot
field,
of sense.
on the field.
Clearly,
Um,
yes. But yeah,
Mm.
I guess ultimately what I'm saying is I think that is still an organizational problem,
yeah,
because that's something that you have to take into consideration. Again, like analytics are not the only thing that are important about building a team. They are
yep,
important, but they are not the only thing. And there are some things that you can't see on paper that you have to consider when building a team. And obviously, the entire White Sox organization from the top is and has been problematic. And the biggest thing that I've seen from them over the last couple seasons that I would critique is that they've become obsessed with pointing the finger of blame, of saying like, it's Tony La Russa. Oh no, it's Tim Anderson. Like,
yeah,
mm, come on, guys. Or like it's, their entire front
yeah,
office that they fired. And instead of taking some ownership and actually making changes, they didn't
yeah,
even interview outside of their organization to replace their front office. And that's just a bad look
right,
when you don't want to collaborate or bring people in that have other perspectives and different kinds of knowledge than you have. So best of luck to them, I
yeah.
guess. Is there any players on the White Sox that you would take for the Astros right now? Anybody you're interested in?
I in a like imaginary situation where they're not wanting to fleece us, I will take a Dylan Cease and I will take a Luis Robert Jr.
Oh, hell yeah.
A lot of people are like, give me Louis, like everyone's like, give me Luis Robert Jr. Put him in center field. I'm all, y'all motherfuckers need to back off. Okay, that is Chaz McCormick's spot
Chas McCormick
until
Truther right here.
right until like further notice. Okay, can we just let Chaz cook in center field and show us or not show us, and that's fine. Okay, but until
Give him a
until the
chance.
until the motherfucker gets an actual real chance there, I need y'all to like lay the fuck off. That's it right there. Okay, anyways. But yeah, I would take Dylan Cease and Luis Robert Jr. Everybody else, I'd be like, no, thank you. You can stay over there.
Yeah, I
But
feel the same. Dylan
there's
Cease, I think, is a really interesting fit for the Cardinals, but I, like, cannot even consider it or think about talking about it because of the whole they need a shortstop thing, and, like, do not even say Tommy Edmonds' name. I can't think about it. Okay, we need to move on because I'm starting to get
okay,
really upset
okay,
again,
that's okay. That's okay.
and it makes way too much
We will
sense,
move on.
so I don't wanna think about it.
We will move on because not only is the manager saying or the GM saying, hey, come get our players. The Detroit Tigers also went and hired Jason Benetti, who is their play-by-play, long time play-by-play, 8 seasons announcer. And not only has he been the announcer for the White Sox for the last 8 seasons, but he grew up loving the White Sox. He is a White Sox
The White Sox fan.
fan,
Yeah.
and the Detroit Tigers now have him. And now I was a little I was a little shocked, not gonna lie, because listening listening to broadcasters, like the home broadcasters, talk about the game and talk about how they talk about like listening to how they talk about other teams. I've lost respect for some broadcasts and I've gained
Yeah.
respect for some broadcasts.
Yeah.
And every time I listened to a White Sox game, I was always very, very impressed by the professionalism and the humor that Jason Benneti had.
Absolutely.
And apparently it came out that Jerry Reinsdorf wasn't a fan of Jason Benneti and didn't like his humor. I'm all, Jerry Reinsdorf, you need to go get your fucking head checked because Jason Benneti is a precious, precious soul. Like, what does the matter with you? Is really, if I ever got the chance to ask Jerry Reinsdorf a question, that would be the question. What the fuck is the matter with
Hi, nice to meet you. What is wrong with
you?
you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think he obviously just doesn't share our great sense of humor, clearly.
Clearly.
But it's kind of the same thing as, I mean, the Craig Counsell, like, Homer guy who you'd never expected to leave, and
Mhm.
you've got to assume that on some level, just like Craig Counsell, that it's ultimately not about money. There were other reasons that they weren't that he both of them, but,
Yeah.
specifically Jason in this case was not happy there, and seeing the other things going on within that organization, we could talk about it for
Right.
the next
Right.
hour of all of
Yeah.
the potential reasons why he was ready to move on. But it's exciting to see someone like him
Yeah.
who, as you said, is, no, you won't find anyone who has a bad word to say about him within the industry of people who've worked with him. And he's going to have a lot of success for years to come. It's just going to be interesting to see him with the Tigers now
Yeah.
instead of the White Sox, but they got a good one. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
I so, going along those lines of like listening to other, broadcasts and stuff. There are some games that I literally won't watch
Yeah.
because of the broadcast team.
Yeah.
And conversely, there are some games that I will tune into to listen to said broadcasters. The I feel so bad saying this. But like the Tampa Bay Rays, like that is one of the ones that I just like won't listen to.
They are definitely valued differently, and again, that's has to be an organizational
Yeah.
philosophy or choice because they are, I mean, they're the spokesperson of the franchise to
Mhm.
some extent, like, you would think that you would put a lot of value in that and a lot of analysis and consideration behind that when
Yeah.
selecting that person and how you pay that person, but
Yeah.
they don't necessarily get paid that way either, and it's definitely one of those roles of where I think any job where there's a lot of demand, there's a lot of people who want to do the job,
Right.
and you feel as the employer that you have the upper hand, the there is a takeaway from the focus on quality because you're
Right.
like, "Well, I could find someone to do it for less money, and that's gonna save me money, and that's what matters to me," and they might not be bad,
Right.
but,
They're
like, the
just not as
difference
good.
they just don't see the value in, like, having someone who is at another level,
Yep.
like Jason Benetti.
Yeah.
So, I think that's really unfortunate because it happens in all worlds of business on so many ways of where we just don't value the difference in the quality of person and their skill level
Yep.
and are not willing to make that investment in them thinking like, well, the majority of my consumers are not going to notice. And so that doesn't make the difference for me. But I have to believe that especially these sorts of things like the person to person stuff, like it really does matter.
Yeah.
And I hope that it will continue to matter and that we will eventually kind of turn the corner of where we see the value in that again.
Yep.
But yeah, obviously the White Sox are not valuing
No.
those person to person
Relationships.
relationships
Yeah, not a
right
thing.
now.
Not a
And
thing right now.
it's showing White
Yeah.
Sox.
Yeah. You should probably get your heads out your asses. Heads out your ass? I don't know.
That
I
is
don't
our
know if
professional suggestion for you.
yeah.
Please pull your heads out of your asses.
Yeah. I'm
Good
like,
luck.
well, in my head, I'm all, wait, hold on. So are you just pulling like the one head out of the one ass, or is it like
Or are they like
multi-head?
in
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So
I don't
that's that's where my ADHD brain went. You're welcome for
That's a
that visual,
visual I
guys.
didn't
Yeah.
need, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll talk about a little bit more of clubs reducing payrolls. Because I was a little shocked to read this that the Minnesota Twins that had just broken their I don't know, like 74 year, it wasn't 74 years. I don't remember how long the drought was, but it's been a long fucking time since the
Yeah,
Minnesota Twins had like won anything, guys. And they just got into the playoffs. Like they're like
dancing
here.
around. Mhm.
And and then it comes out that they're, "Oh, just kidding. We're gonna reduce payroll." What? Why are you gonna reduce payroll? Like, this is your window. You were just there. But going back to your comment of like the NL Central being like super weak, AL Central also
Worse.
maybe
Yeah.
it's just Central divisions.
Yeah. It's that Midwest penny pinching way, man. We just don't spend our money the same way here in the
Yeah.
Midwest. I really believe there's something to it in that sense. But the other thing that was tied directly to that I saw was Valley Sports and the Diamond Sports Group
Okay.
going the bankruptcy. And so they can't rely on their TV deal. And because of that, that is like the direct correlation of, oh, okay, we have to cut our payroll. And that is going to be another one of the biggest stories of the offseason is how all these TV deals
Yeah.
affect teams and affect, obviously our ability to consume the game that we so love.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still think it's surprising that they're not going to figure that out because you've already made this level of investment,
Yeah.
you've gained ground, you've seen the progress that you wanted to see.
Yeah.
So we're
Like,
just
what do
done
you
with that.
Yeah, I apparently, well, and 3 of their starting pitchers are free agents this
Yeah,
season, and I'm pretty sure they're not re-signing, Sonny Gray or Kins
right.
Maeda, like, is Pablo Lopez? No,
No, he's not. But hey, if they wanted to trade him,
right? Like,
we'll take it.
right?
Get in
So
line. Yeah, who knows what they're going to do in order to make that happen. I'm not sure the amount of payroll they have coming off or if they are going to have to trade away players as well. But they have so many great fans up there in
yeah,
Minnesota too. Like it seems like a really great fandom and baseball town. So it's a bummer for the
yeah,
fans more than anything to hear
yeah.
that.
If you are a Minnesota Twins fan listening to this, please drop your comments slash
Yeah.
like suggestions. Let us know how you feel because I honestly would love to know that is one of the fan bases that I don't think I have anyone that I know on my
I got a
Twitter.
twin fan,
Okay.
Sherry. She's a great follow.
Okay.
I'll
Well,
I'll throw her your way, but I would love to
sure.
hear. Sherry, Twins fans, you out there?
Right.
Let us know how you're feeling. Who are you
Because
worried about losing with
yeah.
this news coming out? Because yeah,
Um,
I'm not super connected or into the Twins as an organization, but
I wanna
I
say they got
know
a
that
lot
they
of
have
young I think they have a lot of young talent, like, ready to come up, so
yeah.
I'm wondering if they'll plug holes there. Huh. Like, Jorge Polanco, I know they're thinking trade rumors is Jorge Polanco and, like,
Mhm.
Max Kepler. I would take Max Kepler in a heartbeat just so that I could stare at him. I don't actually that's really mean to say, but yeah,
Fair.
he's not the player that's gonna move the needle on the playing side for
Yeah.
me, okay? Like, me staring at him all day, abso-fucking-lutely, okay? Like, but player wise, not so much. But I want to say that those two names are being floated around to as like trade bait, I think. So yeah, I was interested in that. I was like, okay. So Twins fans, if you're there, hit us up because I would love to know. And then um going from a team that apparently the manager doesn't like anybody on their team, going to a manager that apparently thinks that they're really fucking good. Kelsey, they're really fucking good. And I
The
don't
New York Yankees are really we're pretty fucking good. That's what I heard.
yeah. Sir, did you watch the same team that I watched last season? What's happening there?
So, yeah,
What's
if you
going on?
don't know what we're talking about, Brian Cashman, who is I don't even know what his title is these days. He's the president of baseball ops, I think, for the New York Yankees. He
Yeah.
has been running the Yankees, whether it's GM or president for, since the late 90s now. And he spoke with the media very candidly. He has
Mhm.
not, we haven't heard from him in a while. He hasn't talked to anybody in a while. So maybe this was just, all pent up, but he was
Yeah.
very quick to defend his team and in particular his analytics department, because one of the big things that we keep hearing about the Yankees, like in critique of the Yankees, is that they are too focused on analytics and making their decisions to run their team, which I just think is funny in itself because I don't see that.
Right.
Like, on
Right.
what planet?
Yeah.
But anyway, he wanted to, he's very eager to point out that the Yankees have the smallest or one of the smallest analytics departments in the American League.
Yeah.
So whether or not that's true or how he was
It's
even,
not
money wise or, manpower wise, I'm not really sure what he was talking about, but I think on either side that's probably not really true. The
Yeah,
Yankees don't have the smallest of anything. I'm
yeah.
sorry. They just don't.
It's not actually true. I think it, by, like, literal payroll and, like, their actual, um, analytics department, like, managing, like, payroll on the New York Yankees, like, website or whatever, I wanna say they have the 2nd largest.
Yeah, that reads a lot
Yeah,
more than the smallest of anything.
yeah.
But what was your read on that? Like, what did that really say to you? Because obviously he said a lot of very specific things, but what was your biggest takeaway from that press conference with Brian Cashman?
That apparently he loves his team. He loves his team, he loves his players, and it's everybody else's faults slash thinking that they're not good. What? What is happening right now? I was very I'm still quite confused and stuff on what's happening over there. And I know that all of my Yankee fans are also dazed and
Yeah.
confused.
Did
So,
Yankees fans feel good about that? Like, to me, all it showed was that Brian Cashman is feeling the pressure and not just from the fan base.
yeah.
Because I think, they're not all sitting around on the back end being like, "Oh, those stupid fans, they don't really know
Right.
what's going on. We all feel really good about it. We're on the same page here." Like, that's not what's happening in the Yankees
Right.
front office right now, and that's what that said to me
Yeah. Yeah.
was like the pressure is cooking for Brian Cashman, and he's I I don't know. I was surprised to see such a tenured and experienced executive kind of lash out that way. And
Right.
one of the things that I think we as fans can get frustrated about is when the managers and executives are not super forthcoming and they do a lot of answering questions without answering the question, but that is
Right.
skill, and that is what I would rather see that, I guess, from them as a professional than to see them lash out the way that Brian Cashman did. Like, to me, like, it's just not professional. It's not really the message that you want to send.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah, I was still, like, super confused, and, like, I know a lot of Yankees fans were just, like, in disgust, shaking their heads. Like, my timeline was filled of Brian Cashman, just all of the I was like, "Oh, alright, like, let's see, okay." But it was it'll be really interesting to see what happens for them in the offseason. I know that they hired an outside agency to come in and review basically all of
yeah.
their procedures and policies and whatnot. And, Cashman was quick to defend like his staff and saying that, a lot of people have been hired away from the Yankees. And if they were not so
Yes.
great, like why would people, so is
And
it
even with the players
Carlos?
too. Like, he wanted
Yeah.
to talk about, like, how well all these players have done, like, since they moved on from the Yankees. I'm like, "Bro, that's
Yeah.
not helping your case. What are
Yeah.
you talking
Yeah.
about?
I was like, that's not,
They did
that's
better once they
basically,
left."
you're like,
Okay.
you're like, I don't think that means what you think it means,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, is it Carlos Gonzalez, maybe? Carlos something was one of the Yankees bench coaches, is now hired as, like, the Mets
Oh,
new,
Mendoza, yeah, Carlos
Mendoza,
Mendoza.
thank you.
Yeah,
Um, their new GM, like, or manager,
our
excuse
new
me, not GM.
manager, yeah.
Um, and so, well, yeah, that's, I guess that's good on you that you we're hiring quality people, sure, maybe, like, but okay, like,
Yeah, when you have the most money to spend,
yeah,
that's the expectation,
yeah,
by the way.
yeah. It was I was just kind of laughing in and of itself, trying to figure out, like, what exactly Brian Cashman was smoking before, like, he started talking to everybody, but,
Well,
it
and
is
then
what
it
it is.
also kind of it makes you think, like, we're not gonna see the Yankees do a whole lot in the offseason because clearly he feels pretty good about, they're pretty fucking good. So, one of the big, if not the biggest storylines of the offseason is where is Shohei Ohtani gonna sign? Do you think there's any chance that Shohei Ohtani signs with the Yankees?
I don't think so,
Where do you think what is,
and
like pick 2 favorites. What are your 2
well,
favorites for
so
Ohtani?
here's my thinking with Shohei Ohtani. I actually I Do I think that Shohei Ohtani wants the most money? I think the money is secondary for him. I
I do
don't
too.
think
Yeah.
that that's, like, a driving force for
He's
him.
gonna
I
get a lot
honest
of money.
he
So,
is.
yeah,
He is gonna get a lot of money,
that's a
even
given.
though he won't be able to pitch next season.
Yeah.
Um, so I think the drive for Shohei Ohtani is glory and to be the best baseball player on the best baseball team.
Mhm.
And so in my head, he is going to a contender, not a contender like this season slash next season,
Yeah.
not a rebuilding team that will be contender in a couple of
Yep.
years. So for me, that knocks out like a whole slew of teams, right? Like
Mhm.
he's definitely not going to the Marlins, like he's not going to the
Right.
Tampa Bay Rays. Um, honestly, it
I know what you're
hurts,
gonna say by the look on your face.
it hurts my soul down to like the deepest of its core.
Try to say it without barfing. You can do
I
it.
can't. I
Take
don't
some deep
think I
breaths.
I don't think I
Woo.
can. That I because either one of the team, like my top two, either one of these teams, like kind of makes me want to barf.
Yeah.
One makes me want to barf a little bit more than the other, though. So
Mhm, mhm.
in my head, Shohei Ohtani is going uh, to either the Rangers or the Dodgers.
Yeah. I think realistically that is probably the most likely, like, if I'm being practical, that's what makes the most sense. I totally agree with that. There is a part of me, I've said this before, and I still don't feel totally different about it, that thinks that for at least next year, he might still play with the Angels. I know that might sound crazy, but
Really?
there's like a feeling inside of me, and this Ron Washington news only made me feel like
Okay.
that could actually happen. Realistically, like practically, the practical part of me is like, no, of course that doesn't make sense. Like all we've been talking about forever is how Shohei Ohtani needs to leave the Angels, right?
Right.
But I don't know, especially because of the fact that he is not going to pitch this next year. I could see him signing a shorter deal and betting on himself again a season or two from now,
Okay.
or signing a deal with a potential opt out and incentives, based on how his injury plays out and his recovery plays out. But yeah, I don't know. And maybe part of me is feeling that way because I don't want to see him go to the Dodgers. And I think that's like the other thing that makes the most sense. So I'm like, I would just rather see him stay with the Angels than the Dodgers, if I'm being perfectly
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. No. Yes. Absolutely.
But yeah, I don't know, and I don't like speculating things, especially when there's so many possible outcomes. Like, if we narrowed it down, if you gave me 5 teams, then I would be like, "Okay, let's talk about it for an hour." But when there's so many different things that could happen,
Right.
I'm kinda just like, wait until I have more information because I'm just going off a gut feeling,
Right.
really, outside of that.
Yeah. It. I mean, really, like the Orioles aren't going to pay him, right? Like
Right.
that's not a team that he's
Right,
going
and
to
there's
go
just
to.
teams that he doesn't make sense for, like the Braves. Like, yeah, they might have the money and they're enticing and they're obviously gonna continue to be contenders, but he just doesn't make sense for them to
Right.
as an investment, and he doesn't
Yeah.
fit into what they've got going on. So, like, yeah, I think you can take them off the table. You could go down the line of the 30 teams and give like a percentage of, chance of who you think it makes the
Right.
most sense
But,
for, but
Shohei Ohtani to the Cardinals, him and Lars being BFFs, like, let's go.
if he was pitching, I would feel very differently about it. I still would say they're probably like 28th out of 30 teams to with the chance of signing him, but especially because he's not pitching, there is
Yeah.
0% chance the St. Louis Cardinals are going to sign Shohei Ohtani.
What do you mean? That DH role is wide open over there.
I mean,
Wide
yeah,
open.
wide open in that we have like 10 different people who they want to slot in there on any given day, but the other yeah, I think it might be a while. It's gonna be a while until
Yeah.
we find out how that story ends, so we're gonna have plenty of time to keep talking about it. But the thing that I think might happen sooner rather than later is finishing out filling these managerial holes, and one of the biggest ones is who's gonna manage the Houston Astros in 2024. So I wanna know who you want to manage the Astros.
Well, apparently my wish has been granted, Kelsey, because
Breaking news?
as of 23 minutes ago, Chandler Rome tweeted, "The Astros just announced a press conference at 11 a.m. tomorrow at Minute Maid Park."
Oh, hell yeah. We're gonna find
So
out.
so Joe Espada, come on down. And if it's not Joe Espada, I swear to God, like there will be riots in the streets. Riots in the motherfucking streets.
How
Okay.
confident do you feel about that? Like 90% sure?
I'm hoping. I'm really I like maybe like 73% sure that it's Joe Espada.
Okay.
There was a report deep down hidden in a Bob Nightingale
Aw,
article, like,
yeah.
that was, like, a throwaway one-liner that basically said the Houston Astros will, um, upgrade. Houston Astros will elevate Joe Espada from bench coach to manager, and it was literally, like, one line in a fucking like, in an
Wow.
article, just it was
Okay.
a throwaway, and, so one of the other we say here in Houston that he is, like, media. I don't have a fucking clue what Michael Schwab actually is, but if you say the name Michael Schwab to, like, Houston people, they'll know who you're talking about, but he doesn't have a podcast, he doesn't, like, write for anybody, but he is on Twitter and seems to be plugged into all of the news. I don't know how or why or where, I don't know, like, he'll probably block me after this, whatever, but he tweeted out, like, the before we started recording, that the search is over and Joe Espada is the new manager and blah blah blah. But I'm like, I hadn't seen it anywhere else besides Bob Nightingale, and I was like, I don't know how much I really like trust all of the things that come out of Bob Nightingale's mouth. So word thumbs, tweets, I don't know. So and considering that like Passon hasn't reported it or like basically
Yeah.
anybody else hadn't reported it, I was all we're gonna take it with a grain of salt until
Mhm.
multiple sources come out and now apparently, it looks like that Joe Espada is our going to be the Houston Astros new manager, and I'm fucking thrilled about that. Like, I
Awesome.
have been thrilled about it. I've wanted him since like the very beginning, and I was a little upset that Dusty Baker came back. Not the fact that like Dusty Baker, I mean like that too, but I was really sad that Joe Espada didn't get
Yeah.
that chance like last season because he has interviewed for a bunch of other managerial jobs
Okay.
and I don't know if it was like a mutual thing, like he didn't take it or, like the clubs didn't want him or, whatever. But he has literally been through every single era, like with, I mean, not every single, but like he's been here through the like Lunow area, like with
Yeah.
AJ Hinch, like he's been here after the Lunow era with like, Click and Dusty and then like Crane and Dust. Like he so the fact that like he's been here through all of those changes
Mhm.
makes me really feel like okay, like there's no way that he would have been able to weather this storm without having like the wherewithal and like the know-how to be like okay, like I really feel like Jim Crane was like okay, like Joe, I love you, but we're going to give Dusty another chance, like
Yeah.
just stick around, like it'll
Stick
be
around
yours
for it.
at some point, just hold on,
Yeah.
and in game 5, so, I apologize for all of the non-Astros people that are listening to the podcast, but here it is. So, game 5, of the ALCS, Dusty Baker got thrown out, and that was that whole Brian Abreu throwing at Adolis Garcia, benches clear,
Mhm.
that whole, debacle, and Dusty Baker got thrown out. Dusty Baker does not normally get thrown out of games.
Right.
Very, very few times does he ever get heated, and also very, very few times does Dusty Baker pinch hit. Like, I wanna
Mm.
say that it is a very rare thing that Dusty pinch hits before, like, the ninth inning. Like
Wow. Okay.
like, he
Yeah, that's old school. That's
it's
and he plays
it's
the
yeah.
same he plays every game the same way regardless of like, I one of the things I heard him saying when he was being interviewed before the ALCS was, "It's the same as any game. We're just here, preparing exactly the same way." And I was thinking, like, there is absolutely some merit always to consistency, but it's not the same as every game, and not recognizing that and taking a different approach in certain ways. Like, that was the biggest difference in the conversation that I was hearing from Dusty Baker to then Bruce Bochy. They have a lot of similarities, but that was like one of the biggest differences in their approach, specifically in that series. But I think overall, and what you're saying completely aligns with that.
Yeah. So, like I said, Dusty hates pinch hitting for people. Earlier than like the bottom of the ninth inning with like 2 outs. Like it's the running joke here that's what he does. And so Dusty Baker gets thrown out, and immediately, and when I say immediately, I mean like literally immediately. Jeremy Pena is pinch hit for, and we're all what? Jeremy Pena being pinch hit for? Like what's happening? So Jeremy Pena gets pinch hit for. Never, I say never. I want to say like one time Jeremy Pena got pinch hit for the entire season. One time.
Wow. Okay.
Jeremy Pena gets pinch hit for with Yainer Diaz. And we're like, what? And I hand up, that's on me, was like, what the fuck are we doing? Why is Yainer Diaz, our star rookie catcher here, pinch hitting for Jeremy Pena when Martin Maldonado is still on the on-deck circle? Like, what's happening? Martin Maldonado sits down, and John Singleton comes up. He works a walk, and we're like, you're telling me there's a chance. So Yainer Diaz gets his first base hit of the entire postseason. Okay, because the boy did not get any reps, and I felt very badly for him.
Yeah.
Finally gets his hit. So he's on first. John Singleton works a walk. Now we got 2 on. Jose Altuve comes up and hits a 3-run bomb, and we're like, oh, we're losing our minds.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's absolutely no way that Dusty Baker is making these calls. There's none.
Yeah.
There's no way. I was like, Joe ESPADA is over there. Like, let's go, motherfuckers. Come on. We're pinch hitting. We got this. And afterwards, Dusty was interviewed about who was making those decisions? Like who was pulling those strings? And he didn't fully come out and say that it was Joe, and he didn't fully come out and say that it was him. He basically was like, we tried to plan an inning ahead, and we know what the situation. Sir, we know it was Joe. It was Joe ESPADA. Like, let's come on now. So let's. Oh no, that's that. I was excited because I thought like the Houston Astros had like retweeted something.
Yeah.
It was not. It was not. It was about the Diamonds Gala or whatever. So that's not it.
Well,
but
it's interesting because watching the national broadcast, which is what we have to do for better or for worse during the playoff games, I was watching then, and they were not talking about that from the aspect of like the managerial difference that I mean, listening to you talk about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so obvious what happened there. And would that game have ended the same way if Dusty Baker was not thrown out? It's very easy to say, yeah, you don't think so. But we would have heard probably the Houston broadcast alluding to that and talking about that. But
yeah,
the national broadcast doesn't, follow those storylines or see the nuances of each team that way. So that's really interesting.
So hopefully by the time next time we record, it will actually be official that Joe ESPADA is our new manager, and I'm super stoked about that. Like I think he marries the best of both worlds between player vibes and analytics, because we had one that went too far overboard this way, and then and I think Joe has the respect of the players, but B also has the respect of like the front office, and will accept the information from the front office and use it the best way possible, as opposed to recently that wasn't utilized greatly. And so I think it's a great hire, and I'm like just kind of wishing that it had gone quicker. I don't know if maybe the Astros were like doing their due diligence or like what the fuck, but like he's right here. Like Joe Spot is like, y'all don't see me. Like I'm right here, guys.
Is it my turn yet? Yeah.
No? Okay. So or maybe I don't know, maybe they just didn't want to rush into it. I don't know. But apparently Dana Brown, our I don't know if he's I don't know actually what title Dan
Oh
Brown
my
has.
gosh,
General
all
manager,
titles.
president of baseball ops. I don't they all have different titles, and I'm all do they have the same general responsibilities? Like, can we just not get one
Yes.
name for all of them? I
Yes.
don't know. But, Dan Brown saying that he has a great relationship with Joe Espada, and I don't know if he I'm not this is just, Suzy speculating. I don't wanna say he had a great relationship with Dusty Baker, like, obviously, there was some contention there before because, Dana Brown coming out to the media and basically
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, yeah, no, we want Yainer Diaz to get more reps." And then, like, next game, Dusty Baker still doesn't have Yainer Diaz in the game, and then,
Mhm.
a week later, Dana Brown saying, "Yeah, we're really trying to get Yainer Diaz in that lineup, mhm." And then you don't see Yainer Diaz in the lineup, and then finally, you start seeing Yainer Diaz in the lineup as, like, the DH, and you're all, "Why? Why the DH?" Like, "Oh, we're trying to find him spots to get some ABs," you know? And so you could kinda read between the lines, and you're like, "Alright, well, maybe Dana's like, alright, motherfucker, like, you may not be able to, like, I may not have any power over you, but, just saying that if I just release this to the media and the media has to ask you day in and day out about why you're not putting Yainer Diaz in the lineup, maybe you'll put
Yep.
Yainer Diaz in the lineup.
They're
Don't know."
communicating through the media.
Yeah, basically.
Suzy
So
speculates. I like that as, like, a segment. Suzy speculates.
yeah, that's
Suzy
hey, you know what?
Say that
That's
5
what we'll
times
do.
fast.
No, thank you.
I'm not gonna try.
All right. Well, so I think we are going to wrap this episode up. I'm so stoked that this was episode 1 of Kelsey being like my official co-host. And
And before we wrap things up, I wanna wish you a very happy birthday because that is one thing that is official. You have completed another year around the sun.
I
So,
did.
cheers
My
to you.
birthday.
You weren't drinking bourbon,
No.
but it looks like you did enjoy an ice cold spiked lemonade
Yeah, yeah.
to celebrate
Spiked
this week.
lemonade and studying. My 41st birthday was lit as fuck. I know all
Woo,
of you are
woo.
jealous about how hard I party. Yeah. So yeah, it was a nice quiet evening here at home, studying, watching Hallmark movies, and drinking a spiked lemonade. It was
Ah,
delightful. Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, good. I'm officially old. I love that for me.
Well,
So
the Astros
yeah.
hopefully got you a little bit of a belated gift here, and
Yes.
we'll
Yes.
look
It
forward to
will.
circling back on
Will
that next week.
We will make it official next week. And with that, we will wrap up. If you have not given us a 5-star review or left a 5-star rating or given us a written review, please, 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 I beg of you to go do that. Subscribe on YouTube. We would also love that. Don't give us any constructive criticism though, because there is nothing that we have to improve upon.
Clearly.
Because we are perfect, and also, I won't probably be taking any of the criticism with a grain of salt. That's not. I'm never wrong, so I don't know. I don't know why you would even do that. I'm just saying. I don't know. But with that, we will wrap up, and I hopefully will have all kinds of more hot stove news. There we go. Within the coming weeks. And if not, then we will just have an hour-long conversation about where Shohei Ohtani will go and why. And we will just beat that.
We might have to drink some spiked lemonade then.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say bourbon, but like that's real early on a Sunday morning to
Yeah,
to
there's no
drink
bourbon
bourbon.
in my coffee yet,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
hopeful.
maybe. So, all right. Well, and with that, we will say goodbye and good night, and yay!